Hello there everyone, and welcome to this edition of the Kitchen Table Electronic Repairs. Got this rather nice Technics SL-P2 compact disc player on the table for repair. Picked this up at a flea market a couple weeks ago and claimed that it worked. And of course when I got it home I found that it did not. And I'll explain why it did not work when I show you guys the inner workings of this thing a little bit closer. This particular Technics model was not the very first one that Technics made. This was made in 1985. Previous model, the SL-P1, I believe was made in 1984. And there was one model before that, and I'm forgetting the model number of it now, that was actually the very first one that they made. But the SL line, as far as I can tell, was the very first line that Technics had made that used a tray in order to actually insert and eject the disc. So the first thing to note about this unit is the sheer number of ribbon cables that are going to the front control panel up here. And you can see the Technics labeled microcontroller, which is probably a Fujitsu 4-bit microcontroller, although I don't know that for sure. There's also something else that's rather interesting with this unit. It actually has a relay back here that clicks on and off in the middle of when you go and switch between tracks. And I believe that that relay is actually cutting out the audio output to the receiver to make it dead silent. I'm not entirely certain why they chose to do that, but it works, so why not have it, I guess. And you can see the amount of wires in this thing and the sheer number of integrated circuits that are on this board, including, I think this is for the actual DAC decarding card right here. And this actually does get fairly warm, I have to say. It's quite impressively warm. And back here is where the power supply lives. You can see these three voltage regulators back here that are mounted to this makeshift heat sink. And that whole assembly is screwed to the back of the metal case right here. And it does get considerably warm back here, I've got to say. This is actually quite hot right now, as a matter of fact. But I guess whatever works to keep them cool, right? We got a transformer, and then this thing, it's nothing more than a switch mounted to a circuit board. And you can see that there. And then of course we've got their shaft going all the way up to the power button on the front here. And because I just repaired this, I don't have everything screwed down yet. So it's a good opportunity to show you exactly what I think the problem was on this unit. So here's the underside of the beast here. As you can see, there's a lot going on even on this side of it. We have two screws right here, spring-loaded screws, one up here and one down here. And these are for locking the tray when you're actually transporting the unit. And then, of course, we have our laser sled lock right here. And, of course, that locks the sled into place on transport as well. And unfortunately, the previous owner did not bother to do that. And so I had to go in here, not only lubricate stuff to get things free again, but also I had to get that sled put back into the correct place on the worm shaft. And I also had to go ahead and clean the laser a little bit because it just didn't seem to want to read a disc. And it was rather unfortunate, but a good cleaning seemed to solve that. So this one tiny little screw up here is all that holds the circuit board in, at least permanently. And then we've got one clip right here, and this whole thing just kind of pops out like so. As you can see, something rather interesting down here is that this worm gear is actually driven by a belt off of this motor right here. And I believe that probably more than likely people that have problems with this particular model of CD player, this SL line of CD players, the P1, the P2, that have had problems with the sled not going back and forth correctly, it's probably due to that belt being loose or dried up or something like that. This one happens to be just fine. It was just a matter of getting the sled realigned. Got up here a whole manner of gears up here that drive the tray in and out, and also the place where you set the disc into the tray that actually moves up and down, and so all this gearing is controlling that as well. This entire unit is actually suspended in here to an extent. There's actually four. It's just rather interesting the way they built this. there's 4 nuts and bolts right here and washers right here, and they're all spring-loaded. So it's a little bit reminiscent of a turntable, because a lot of turntables, if you take the bottom off of that thing, the entire assembly, the table, the motor, the tone arm, the base plate, everything is like one entire unit, and it's on like these. It's like it's on the suspension, that it's got these little adjustable springs to raise and lower the entire assembly and level it out, and also provide suspension to keep the record from skipping, or at least to help dampen that. There's some grease right here at this end of the worm gear shaft, and then there's some more grease over here, and then there's a little bit of grease along this worm shaft gear itself where this little arm rides on. And the grease wasn't hardened or dried or anything like that, but it was definitely thick jelly gel, kind of a, you know, it was kind of gummed up pretty good. So I just hit it with a little bit of my Epic RC car motor bearing lube right here, oil that I use. This stuff is fantastic for lubricating stuff like this. I just went in here and hit it a little bit there to freshen up the lubrication, and I went ahead and drizzled a little bit on this the sled right here, on both sleds there, so that it rides back and forth freely. And that's all it really needed to get itself going, and of course a good cleaning of the lens on the laser itself. So I'm going to put this back in. I'll get that screw back in, and I'll show you guys how this tray works. It's kind of neat to see it actually work. You don't get to see that type of stuff unless you take the whole thing apart. So while I got it apart still, might as well go ahead and videotape that too, right? So here's the tray as you'd normally see it in its ejected position. Of course, assuming that the front panel was here, you'd see this thing hanging itself out like a tongue. So go ahead and push the eject button. You can see how that center portion there kind of got sucked down. Kind of neat. Okay, so the disc is spinning, so I'm going to go ahead and switch tracks. You'll be able to hear that relay click in between tracks here. Kind of neat. So to start off with, you can see that nifty little mirrored display there of the CD spinning in that window right there. It's kind of a cool effect. I'll do a close-up of that a little bit later here. One of the things that really impresses me about this being 1985 is just how many advanced features are on this CD player. For example, the ability to type in which track number you want to go ahead and play with this keypad right here, which goes from 1 to 0. And you've got the A-B repeat function, and then you've got the disc repeat or track repeat, or however you want to program it, button here. Music scan, which I'll demonstrate later too. And of course you got your memory, your index, and your remaining time button right here to show you how much time is remaining on the entire disc, which is kind of cool. And of course you've got your traditional skip and search buttons here, and your stop, and your pause button, and the play button right here. The front's all plastic, obviously. You know, pretty much by the mid-80s, aluminum face plates had pretty much vanished. It has a nice brushed aluminum look to it, although again it is plastic. But I think this would definitely look good even with a modern stereo receiver, especially something that's silver. So I'm going to go ahead and stop it here. So let's say I just want to go ahead and do track 5. So I'll just do push to 5, hit the play, and it'll just start to go ahead and play that track. And you can see the track bars up here only go up to 15, and as you can see, tracks prior to the one I'm playing right now disappear, and the current track is actually flashing. The arrow over here indicates that there's more tracks beyond 15. I don't know how many tracks this thing could actually go up to, although you can put 99 in there, but I have no idea if it would actually play that. Hit play. See that disc spin up there? you can see how fast it finds that track too. Even though it's fairly old and early technology, it still does quite a good job at finding where it needs to go here. So let's go. I'll go ahead and demonstrate the A-B repeat here. So I'm going to go ahead and let's do the A-B repeat. Now what this will do is it'll repeat 1 second of the song. So let's see if the YouTube Music Mafia scanning machine can actually figure out what song I'm playing here. There we go. You can hear that relay clicking on and off in there. So I'll go ahead and demonstrate the music scan feature of this now. By default, the music scan button plays 30 seconds from track number 1 all the way to the final track on the CD. Plays 30 seconds of each song and then jumps to the next one. Now if we want to change it to whatever amount of seconds we want, although I don't think it can go higher than 99 seconds probably. Well, let's say I want to do for 10 seconds, so I'll put in 10 on the number pad over here, and I'll go ahead and hit music scan, and it'll start playing 10 seconds, the first 10 seconds of each track starting at track 1 here. And then once we get to a song that we want to hear, we'll just hit the play button. Now let's say, oh yeah, that's the one I want to listen to, so we'll hit the play button and it'll just continue to play. As you can see, the M-scan light went away there. This does have a couple scuffs right there on the face, and there's one down here as well, and there's a whole bunch of them up there on the top cover, but nothing that a little touch-up paint wouldn't cure if I really cared about that, but I really don't, honestly. As long as it works and it still looks reasonably well, the display is well lit still, I don't have a problem with it. One thing I do have to warn you, if you ever have one of these, or maybe this is common on older CD players, I don't really know. This is the oldest one I've ever owned. I'm used to a CD player that when you hit the eject button here, the open close button, that it actually stops the disc before it ejects the disc. And this did not do that. Before I actually put this thing all back together, I had the disc in here and I just hit the close button while it was still playing. Well, the disc stopped and then it spun up to extremely fast, and while it was spinning fast, it decided to go ahead and eject the disc. And all kinds of holy hell came out of that CD player spinning at a very high rate trying to get at me because I did that. So it really wasn't very happy that I didn't go ahead and completely stop the disc first before ejecting it. But you live and learn. So take care, everyone. Thanks for liking, commenting, subscribing, and sharing all of my videos.